Hello, today we're going to be talking about major threats to our business and potential terrorism preparation. Now, even though terrorism is probably not as much thought about here in the United States, you can still see by this chart that we're at a medium risk. We can actually go and read a report with regard to 2018, and this is the website that we would go to, globalterrorismindex.org, and we can read the information with regard to that. Another place that we can go, and the link is on that page as well, is that we can go to the United States and see the different types of events that have actually happened and the target with regard to that. You can see here transportation, educational institution, so business, airports, those types of things. Now, the reason why I'm actually mentioning that is because we as companies need to keep our employees safe. And so this is one of the things that we would need to address in some type of form or format within our company. And we'll talk about here in just a second how to do that. Now, in history, the first major attack on the United States was the World Trade Center back in 1993. It was an explosion that was in the parking garage. There were only 6 people that were killed, but 1,000 plus were injured at that time. The next event that we saw, this was the most fatal when we start looking at it, and the most egregious at the time, back in 1995, was the federal building in Oklahoma City. And you can see several people died, including 19 children. And it pretty much gave rise to, hey, we need to be looking at this and we need to figure out what to do and address this within our companies. The major event that happened was back in 2001, September 11th, the World Trade Center and the Pentagon. There were 4 airplanes that were confiscated, and there were several people who died not only on the plane but then also at the World Trade Center and the Pentagon. And this was the worst event. This has really heightened the terrorism and any type of major threats to companies, and that we needed to address those. And this is one of the major events that kind of caused that. So as an overview with regard to businesses, we do need to look to see if we are located in large buildings, if there's major tourist attractions that are next to us or near us, or if we're in the center of some type of activity in such a main city or something like that. And so if we are, we do need to make sure that we address this somehow. OSHA doesn't really have any type of counterterrorism program that's required, but they do require an emergency action plan that can be written. It can also be included in our contingency plan, our safety plan, or a loss control plan. And what we're wanting to do is actually say what could potentially happen, how we're going to handle it, and how we're going to kind of test it to make sure that it's okay and that it's a workable type of a plan. So in planning this, we do once again need to look at what we're going to do. What are some of those vulnerabilities that we need to look at, and what are some of those things that when something should happen to our facility, how are we going to continue operations? How are we going to continue our daily dose of production or whatever we're doing? How do we do that with regard to that? We also need to kind of say, okay, how would it affect our people? And this is not only just our people that would be working with us and working at our facility, but the people have homes and things like that. And if they can't go home, how does that affect our company as a whole as well? And so this is one of the reasons why we need to look at it. There are different reasons why we may be targeted and have a threat against us with regard to anything that may happen. And we got to kind of look at the risks that are out there. What is the product that we're producing? If it's something that can be used for something else, would someone come in and do something to our facility? Do we have chemicals in large quantities that could cause some major explosions and events with regard to that? Food manufacturers, also pet food manufacturers, have to look at contamination and issues with regard to that. If we're at a hotel or other large events, or even the name of our company, those could make us a potential target. Now, some of the other things that are prime targets are air transportation, significant landmarks, and anything having to do with energy, military bases, factories, schools, hospitals, and banks. Those are potential targets. And once again, we need to look and see, okay, are we one of these types of businesses, and or are these close to us, and could they potentially be a target? Now, if the events would occur, we need to kind of look at what to do in regards to keeping our employees safe. Once again, one of the biggest issues in 9/11 attacks on the World Trade Center was the means of evacuation and how they actually evacuated people. Do we have a bunch of stairwells? Do they have access only to certain floors via that? How long is this going to take to evacuate? Where are these people supposed to meet? And do we even practice this? Do we have drills, or do people know what to do in the event of an emergency? As I mentioned before, we have, depending on the location of our property, it could be that it would have a higher profile. We have to kind of look at, once again, what is near us. Also, too, how do vehicles kind of access our facility? How do people access our facility, that type of thing. If we are remote, obviously it's going to be less less expensive with regard to that, but it could be also easier for us to be spotted, whereas in a more populated area, they would not be able to see our facility as much, but they would have more effect because there would be more people there. Some of the ways that we can kind of limit access would be obviously fences and any type of entrances, detectors, having our employees screened prior to beginning work, doing criminal records. A lot of you are HR people, and so you do this anyway, but we need to kind of see what is acceptable, excuse me, I have the hiccups here, what is acceptable and what is not. We also have to make sure that we look at the property and see what type of access other people, vehicles would have to this as well. When we are looking at responsibilities with regard to just around the premises, is there any type of shrubbery? Do we have, something on our windows that would kind of impede us seeing people come in? Are the doors, are they secured? Granted, we can't really bind a door for a person to not be able to get out, but they can be locked from the outside. We can also have an alarm with that secured with like that panic bar, so that if someone does actually come through that, it would alarm us and we would know that we need to go to that. We also need to kind of look at any type of chemicals or gases or anything like that that could be added to any ventilation systems that are there, and having good lighting in our parking lot, at our entrances, our exits, would be helpful for our employees as well. We also want to kind of look at communication systems, not if something happened to this part of our company, how would we be able to get the information? Could we log in remotely, which most companies have that now, but having a backup or a secondary backup system at another location versus our primary location definitely would be helpful. These are two videos, and I did stick these in the video links in our modules, and so you will be able to access them there. The first one is talking about continuation of operations and planning with regard to that, and then the second one is with regard to FEMA. So do make sure that you watch both of those. There will be questions in the quiz on those. One of the major ways that we can kind of monitor with regard to what's going on is security systems, and pretty much all companies have these in one shape or form, and you can see a lot of them are listed here. But keeping our employees safe, once again, is very important, and it can be done through security systems. It also can be done through surveillance systems. I know here at the KTC we have cameras all over, and so if they have to go back and watch it, they definitely can. They would know exactly who was doing what. We also need to kind of see if we can access those remotely, or if they're linked to other systems within our process and everything. Some companies, not very many, do have guards. I know a couple of the pet food manufacturings and food manufacturings over in the Joplin area that I've worked at during the summer for consultation. They do have guards, and it's 7 days a week that they have coverage, 24 hours a day. And any trucks that pull in, they would actually look at it. When we look on the employee side or just the worker side, that they don't have guards for that. What they have for most of those are the badge systems, where you have to badge in to actually get into the door, different types of screening. Some even have the thumbprint and that type of thing. But just knowing what's going on with our employees, even people, mainly people who are not employees as well, so that we can monitor that as we go along. As I mentioned earlier, and just to kind of get into it a little bit more, but computers and networks and having some type of firewall, having any type of access to our information, whether it's our employee information or whether it's critical information that can be used in production or any other type of thing, we need to make sure that we do that, and then train our employees accordingly how to do that. Now, with regard to any type of emergency action plan, we would want to, once again, know how to respond to certain types of threats, and we'd have to list those out. If there was a bomb in our facility, or if there was a hostile situation, workplace violence situation as well, how would we handle that? And it needs to kind of be in advance, and we need to make sure that our employees understand this, and that we actually do drills to see if what we've planned out does work. This is not so much we see this anymore, but a lot of packages at one point in time and letters were sent that had some toxic substance in that. But how do we accept our mail? Who actually looks through that? What are some of those safeguards? Those need to be addressed as well. So as a supervisor, or even as a safety person, we need to kind of consider any possibility that could happen. And once again, this is going to probably be in our emergency action plan, but some of it could be in our continuity plan as well. The emergency action plan, just to clarify, really safeguards our employees, whereas the continuity plan says if our business should fail, this is how we're going to take care of continuation of business and that type of thing. But we do need to look at all of the possibilities that are out there, things that could happen, make sure that it's written, that it's trained to, and that we're updating it at all times. For insurance purposes and loss prevention or loss control, they only cover certain things, and we need to kind of know what those are. If there was a tornado, what would they cover? We need to make sure that we're covered from a risk standpoint and understand what those risks are. So for the most part, I just wanted to kind of go through ways that we could not necessarily eliminate risks, but actually be able to respond to those risks should they happen. A lot of any type of major threats or terrorism, we're not going to know that it's going to happen in advance, but we do need to know how to handle it with our employees, and then also with our business production and how we're going to continue that. Our goal is to minimize injuries and illnesses and deaths from any type of impact. Thank you very much.